It's the Exit 52 podcast brought to you by Jimmy's Famous Seafood, Sunday night, October 13th, 8:10 p.m. My name is Jake Louque. I'm joined by Brian. I'm joined by Spenny, here to do an instant analysis of the Ravens' 30-23 win over the Washington Commanders. Fellas, are you telling me this analysis is instant? Is that what I'm led to believe? How instant are we right now?
One would believe it's pretty instant.
Okay.
I think so.
Listen, you tell me.
These thoughts of analysis have instantly popped into my brain.
This is because we're as instant as it really can be right now. You know what I'm saying? Like this is so instant.
This is a hot start.
It's. I mean, honestly, I couldn't have gotten out of the blocks any worse. You know, they blame this on me. Ravens win 30-23 over the Washington Commies. You know, Lamar Jackson looking pretty darn good today, I would say. Jayden Daniels looking pretty darn good on the other side. It kind of, I would say it relatively lived up to the build that we were talking about as far as this being a shootout between two very hot teams within the AFC and NFC. Some people were calling for the upset and you know, calling for kind of a rat line there. Spenny, I think you were one of them. Ravens 6.5. They wind up covering that spread, winning by a flat touchdown there. Overall, I mean, I thought pretty much about how I expected this game to go. I picked it, I think, 26-19. Obviously, a couple more points on either side, but overall, I don't know. It kind of lived up to the billing to me. Ravens get the W. They're 4-2, and I got to say, I'm feeling pretty good about this team after feeling very bad about them 4 weeks ago. How are you guys feeling?
Brian, I feel like the Ravens played a familiar game, and it was a game at home. It was a day game. It was a game where there were some drives that were funky. They turned the ball over early, but ultimately it felt like it was so familiar at this point that it was comfortable. How do you feel about that statement, Brian?
It was comfortable. I would say it was validating, just in the sense that I almost disagree about funky stuff. It was just that first drive, and then the rest of the game was a very eventful game, if that makes sense. Like the motions just went through and we did our thing. We controlled the game. We moved the ball effectively like we know we can. We mixed in some runs. We mixed in some success in the air. Like we just kind of played a really well-constructed game, controlled it, didn't really have many doubts about what the ultimate outcome was going to be. Played adequately on the defensive side of the ball, which is kind of what you're asking for when the offense played the way it did today. And I think over this 4-game win streak, I said it in the blog that I posted a couple hours ago, which was, I guess, a little more instantaneous. But over the 4-game win streak, we've seen this offense pretty much build the jet out of anything it wants to be. Like, we just pounded the shit out of the Cowboys and Bills on the ground. When we had to fly against Cincinnati, we did exactly that. They presented it a little more to us today to go through the air. We took what was there. There were easy yards and we ate. And then towards the end, when the situation called for it, we just closed the game out on the ground. Just a very quiet 132 from Derrick Henry and 2 touchdowns. It just didn't seem like he was chewing up yards and eating them up. And then he busted a pretty big one there in the fourth quarter, which is kind of what you come to expect from him. So, man, it felt like one of his lesser games, which I know we only have a 6-game sample size with him on our side of the fence. But, man, that 2,000 number seems like it's going to be an easy one if he's running like this on his mid days, right?
I would say so. And I mean, he's obviously a story there with the way that he closed it out. But I mean, honestly, it kind of feels like another week where it felt like the Commanders were keying on him, right? It's like, we're going to do what we have to do to stop this guy early in this game. And then the Ravens was like, all right, well, we got the options through the air and we can run it with Lamar Jackson. And to me, a story of it is Zay Flowers. I forget the exact amount of all-purpose yards that he had through the air, or I should say all-purpose in total. But, you know, it just, whenever they needed a bucket, Spenny, to your parlance there, he gave him a bucket. I mean, he looked awesome in this game. They needed a couple of conversions from him. They got it. They needed some big plays from him. They got it. To me, Zay Flowers, I think, was kind of the differentiating factor in this one. And as much as Terry McLaurin is great, As the franchise pointed out before we got going here, he looked awesome in this game. I think Zay Flowers on the other side, it speaks to me how far the Ravens have come as far as the wide receiver position, where they needed a guy like this for a long time. They finally drafted one. They finally got it right. But you look at him, and then you also look at Rashad Bateman, who made some great plays in this game too. It feels like their receiving core, finally, they've been trying to build this thing through the homegrown method for so many years. It feels like they've got two guys that can absolutely do that for them. Another play from Nelson Aguilar too, but those two guys obviously were the big stories through the air for me.
Yeah, Zay Flowers sets a franchise record in the first half. I believe it was 8 receptions. He ends up finishing with 9 receptions on 9 targets for 132 yards. Rashad Bateman, 4 for 4, 71 yards. Mark Andrews, 3 for 4, 66 yards. Lamar Jackson ultimately so efficient on his pass attempts. Ends up, I believe, 20 of 26 there. Got a little tiny bit of the hiccups, boys. But Jake is dying right now. Got a little tiny bit of the hiccups, but so efficient to your point. And we've seen back-to-back weeks where Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, they're able to have a defined role, a defined plan, and be efficient. And Lamar Jackson is delivering the ball so cleanly. And I will be a little bit of a little, call me a cocky Ravens fan, I suppose, but that opening drive interception, does it hit Mark Jackson or Mark Andrews in the chest? Yes. Does he kind of flub the ball up? Do the Commanders happen to catch it? Yes. Interception. I think that kept the Commanders in the game a little bit. It felt like they marched right down the field. Zay Flowers is a 44-yard gain off of a screen pass, rips down the field, and we saw this pass game able to be efficient when teams are so devoted. The Commanders love their game plan on both sides of the ball. Offensively, they got Mark Jackson. Yep, Mark Jackson, the number one commentator on the Ravens.
The thing about the Golden State Warriors is they have to score more points than the other team to win the game.
Exactly. And we saw them be able to adapt again. The Commanders came out on the defensive side. They played like a tight front, a bare front. They stack basically the B gap through the A gap. They had their 3 big dogs dominating, whipped Tyler Linderbaum, who had a bad snap, got whipped really badly a couple times early. And the Ravens adapted. They improvised, they overcame. And that to me is a huge point. I think this was a great game for growth, continuing from that Bengals game where the Commanders kind of went cover 0. Again, a little tiny bit more. And we talked about in the preview, I didn't see that being Dan Quinn's method. That was the method. And I think that they were prepared. They had a good game plan. And then the other side of the ball, they went no huddle, which was super effective. Got to give Jayden Daniels, got to give Terry McLaurin a ton of credit. I think there was 3 balls where Jayden Daniels had a 2-foot window to fit a ball into, like he was playing cornhole, and on a crucial 3rd down, on a touchdown, a couple times, fit a ball into a tiny window. Terry McLaurin able to come up with it. Got to give him some credit there. But like you said, Jake, Zay Flowers was an unstoppable force, and they have been stubborn with the receivers. We're going to draft them. We're going to develop them. Oh my God, it has happened. They feel professional and clean, and it was awesome to see.
Yeah, and honestly, it's great to see Mark Andrews get that touchdown too. It felt like that was a kind of monkey off the back moment. Honestly, you could see the relief on his face when he got to spike that ball. Lamar was pumped for him. He talked about it after the game. He was supposed to score in Cincinnati is what he said. He and Andrews both kind of obviously jokingly confirmed that Andrews was pissed at him, last week, and he goes out there and does that. Not a whole lot from Likely in this game. Nothing really from Kolar. This was kind of all wide receivers. It was all Derrick Henry. It was a little bit of Lamar on the ground. And I'm glad you mentioned that pick early in the game. It bounces off of Andrews' hands. And I told Eric, who I was sitting with, my buddy, kind of not a great throw from Lamar. I didn't think it should have probably been caught by, Andrews. It's just another kind of data point that they're not really on the same page together throughout the season, but it was good to see them bounce back. It was good to see them make that touchdown there. And overall, it's just like the way that I think about this game is that I've sat in that, seat, that very seat, many times the last couple of years. And in this type of game, I have felt that pit in my stomach. I did not feel that pit in my stomach today. I just kind of had faith that this team was going to find a way to come through. And they did. And honestly, there have been games against less talented teams that I felt that pit in my stomach. But there's just something about this team that I think things are really coming together, that I just feel that they're very competent. They've been here for a lot of years together. They've been, kind of in these situations together. And I just feel like they've weathered a ton of storms, and they're in a spot where they can close these things out a lot easier than they used to be able to. Brian, I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, it was just as you guys both talk through great points that you guys are making, like 2 words came to mind, like calm. Like they were just so calm and just so confident. It felt like, or at least that was the energy in the building and the way the team was playing. It was like, hey, we're in control of this game. Nothing's gonna, spiral or slip away from us here. And it just felt like a stark difference from earlier in the season. Then the other part is just surgical, which I think is a little more in line with what Spencer was saying. Like, everything they did was just, hey, you're going to do this, I'm going to do that, and we're just going to move the football on you. Like, we don't care. Like, do whatever you want. We're just going to have our way with you. So this gives me a lot of confidence in the idea that we can just impose our will on teams and just suffocate them and bend them to our will. No other way to put it. Like, we've played these weird games so far this year, and we've been fortunate to come out ahead on a couple of them and unfortunate on a couple others. We're taking that variability out of play by just being surgical and methodical and doing exactly what we're supposed to do. There's still a couple places where we were sloppy, but I think we did all of the other things so well and so fluidly that, like, this team will have a margin of error against most teams they play. And so the idea is just to mitigate some of those mistakes and not let them kind of spiral or magnify them, and just continue forward, push forward, and trust in that margin of error that you're that much better than the other team, and just allow nature to take its course, if that's a one way to put it. So this game kind of cemented that thought process in my mind, and now I'm thinking a lot of things about this team, more so than against teams. I don't know, are the Bengals a better team than the Commanders? I don't know, they're probably neck and neck. 2 totally different games, but which one are you walking out of feeling more confident about the team's ability to just show up week in, week out, and do their jobs and take care of business?
And
This
look at
game, more than
the
any other game this year, probably, right?
Yeah, and look at the discrepancy in records there. It just goes into the idea that it's so week to week. It's such a game of inches. These are all cliches, but they're cliche for a reason. And that's why I'm like glad about the Ravens being able to weather their way out of that 0-2. And it feels like, Spenny, we've talked about that Bruce Lee quote over the years of just be water, find a way to be versatile throughout these games, do what you got to do. And we've talked, I just feel like every week it's a new different player that we're talking about that's doing something big. And we've talked about Justice Hill and the impact that he made against the Bills, a little bit against the Bengals. Not much on the stat sheet this week, but we had Mina Kimes tweeting out about his great job picking up blitzes. Like, it just speaks to me that Todd Monken is in total control of this offense, and Lamar Jackson too, of just knowing what the question is and knowing how to answer it. And like, if you have to find a way to score 30 points against this team, which they absolutely did, I feel like that was the watermark, and the Commanders were not going to meet that today. They just found a way to do it. And Justice Hill, a guy, like we said, just not making a ton of, plays through the air, plays on the ground, but picking up blitzes. And then again, like I talked about with Bateman, just making plays just kind of quietly, and Andrews kind of coming up for 66 yards this week, and Lamar 40 yards on the ground. It just feels like they have the pieces to do what they need to do against pretty much any team. And obviously this is not the greatest defense in the world, but I don't know. It's just very, very encouraging to me.
I was really impressed with the Commanders. Again, the defined game plan on both sides of the football. They didn't do exactly what the Bengals did, but they were like, okay, you're going to have to run the ball to the outside, and we're going to get in your face and see if you can make plays. And then on the other side of the football, they came out and went no huddle. And so much credit to Jayden Daniels, so much credit to the Commanders as a whole, getting to the line of scrimmage, snapping the ball, preventing the Ravens from being able to substitute, which is what they are so good at. The Ravens are so good at being multiple. They pride themselves in being multiple. So I thought it was a really valiant effort from them. And still, like you just said, being water, Jake, being fluid, being able to adapt, being able to find the open spots, Lamar Jackson making calls at the line of scrimmage. It felt really professional on the offensive side of the football. It felt really veteran, quarterbacky, so to speak. Lamar Jackson, despite the interception, I think ends up with like a 115 quarterback rating in this game, 363 all-purpose yards. And Brian, you said it. Derrick Henry wasn't exploding, necessarily. He had a couple big runs, but the most casual 130 yards and 2 touchdowns you've ever seen, right? Like, they just kept coasting. There was no panic. There was no big issue. There was a little bit of game management that we can get into, but a really steady hand all around, despite the Commanders being ready. It felt like they were ready, and man, it was a fun game. Maybe it wasn't the Terry McLaurin 60-yard touchdown. Lamar did end up having a huge run. Mark Andrews makes some plays, this, that, and the other, but it wasn't like this primetime heavyweight spotlight game that ended up transpiring back and forth, pick six, this, that, and the other. So thought it was a steady hand from the Ravens overall.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it, a good sort of capstone on what this game was for the Ravens. It just feels like they're in a good spot right now. I think I believe the Steelers win today, so that has them tied there at 4-2 atop the AFC North. But man, like, if I had to pick a team that, you know, I would be more confident in to go on and win this thing, nothing against the Steelers, but the Ravens have the better quarterback. You know, they just have a better, you know, offensive operation, in my opinion. It's just very encouraging. It's very encouraging overall. Getting into the defense a little bit, Marlon Humphrey actually leading the team in tackles. Funny enough, he was on the injury report. He has 8 tackles. Roquan with a 5 of his own, and then a bunch of guys there at the 3 mark. And, you know, obviously, like, you can get into it more than tackles as far as your advanced metrics and everything. And Spenny will do that on the jumbo set, but it's just another sort of side of the ball where it just felt like they knew what they needed to do. There were a couple of plays where you had Eckler leaking out there on the right early in the game, kind of wide open. They had a few of those. And then obviously Daniels was doing that thing, Spenny, that you talked about, where you got to get him to the up shoulder, but he would still sneak out. And it felt like the Ravens were kind of ready for that, but he would still sneak out and kind of throw, not necessarily across his body, but just drive it upfield to a wide open guy. That was definitely a thing that they were, they had in the toolkit there, and they took full advantage of. So it's kind of what kept them in this one, man. They're pretty impressive, I think, offensively, but the Ravens defense just they had a way to answer the bell throughout this one. I thought Matabike looked great again. I thought Roquan, you know, looked solid there in the middle. Marcus Williams, maybe another player or two that you probably would have wanted back. And Brandon Stevens too. I think he gave up a big catch there. I think that might've been the McLaurin touchdown on 4th down. Stevens was in coverage. Just another kind of data point that, like, Stevens, I just keep trying to defend him, just so good in coverage, but he just doesn't have ball skills. Like, he just doesn't know where the ball is on these given plays, and you just give them up. But overall, I thought the defense looked very solid as well, even though giving up 23 points. But in the modern NFL, what are you going to do? Sometimes that's just the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, I thought we forced the issue a lot too. A couple people who didn't necessarily rack up a ton of stats, but like, as per usual, Kyle Hamilton on a few blitzes forced the issue with Daniels. I thought Kyle Van Noy, he's only on the board for 2 tackles. He was in the backfield quite often. There was a play there, I want to say, on the late field goal drive by Washington to cut it to a 1-score game again. He just completely read a screenplay out to the left and just snuffed it out, and Daniels had nothing to do. Like, he just had to tuck it, and I think he threw it away or something. And actually, I noticed Van Noy, like, gesture towards the DC sideline, like, no, I saw that coming a mile away, which I thought was awesome. But I'm just very impressed with Jayden Daniel, though, in the face of all those things. Like, he didn't make that backbreaking mistake that he easily could have made. So many rookies would have made in the face of pressure. There was a play late in the first half as well where they had the ball near midfield, and I think he had Eckler in the flat, and that was his only play with a blitz coming in, and he just threw it at his feet. Like, as opposed to let Eckler get taken down for a 3-yard gain, let the clock run, he just threw it at his feet. It would have been completion, no doubt, but, like, I just thought that was such a brilliant play that I think Lamar Jackson probably throws it to the receiver, just if we're being honest. So really impressed by him. Of course, he made the magic with McLaurin, and but all things considered, I thought we brought the fight to him pretty well today.
Yeah, that 4th and 12 play, one of our commenters calling out, that was rough by Nate Wiggins there. Just kind of, you know, getting lost in coverage, going for the, you know, it was a little bit of a just trying to make a play, but obviously he gets called for the pass interference, and that would have ended the game there. I think the commenter might have called out, or, which, you know, I get it. I think he said Wink Martindale vibes with the way that it was called. Again, I get it, but it's just a Nate Wiggins, like, So maybe clean some of that stuff up. He's a rookie. He'll get there, but this team could use some Arthur Mullet back in the lineup. I'll say that.
Love that point. Arthur Mullet being someone that can provide a little bit more versatility. But it did feel like the confidence in that call, despite the poor outcome, was that, hey, we have a hell of an offense, and I don't think they can stop us. And going back to Rashad Bateman and Zay Flowers, it just really didn't feel like they had any answers. Zay Flowers could go side to side. You could use him in the quote-unquote gadgety sense, working the sideline, handing him the football, and then he could go get a big boy route. He could make a play after the catch, all of those kinds of things. So I think knowing – I feel like it's starting to get to the point where Zach Orr and the Ravens defense, it didn't feel like they were realizing, hey, we really do have an elite offense that we can play off of. And that call didn't go their way. They do get the DPI, all of those kinds of things, as Joe Burrow reels off a 48-yard touchdown.
I hate that. I hate seeing that. I was watching that on Twitter. Just one of the worst things that could have happened to me tonight. I just need them to. I need them to lose. I need the Giants. Come on, G-man. What are we doing here? Let's get a W. Let's just put them away. I don't want to hear from them again. It's over. We got that done last week. We're done with it.
You'll never be done with those guys.
Listen. I will if they have. Let's say 5 losses. Okay, that'll be. I got sunburned today. I don't want to deal with the Cincinnati Bengals. It was sunny out. All right. What do you want me to say?
That's quite all right. But Brian, you made a lot of good points. And I think that has to be your confidence. Like, what's your calling card defensively? That you have a badass offense, right? They can run the ball, milk some clock. They let up a score towards the end of the game and are able to go drain it out. And I think that kind of relationship to playing complementary football needs to be a little bit more of the Ravens defensive MO. We love having you guys on YouTube. We love having you guys on Twitter. There are 900 people in here. If you could like and subscribe, easiest way to support the boys. We will be giving away a Derrick Henry jersey on Halloween. If you go ahead and subscribe, send a little screenshot that you are subscribed on YouTube. But yeah,
how much are you streaming today?
Oh my God. Relentlessly.
This is a little low T Spenny. I'm not getting the decibels that I like.
It was relentless. It was relentless yelling. I've been doing it since I was a little boy. I am the obnoxious fan that will yell on third down.
How about that little kid from Bethesda in front of you? How did that go? He was built
it did not go well. He immediately I said Zay Flowers has the big catch run after the catch, 44 yards. And I said, yeah, whip that ass. And he turned around after the interception, like, yeah, whip that ass. I was like, all right, buddy. I'll let the ball lie for us here, and we'll see what happens.
I had a guy at Giant this morning in a Commander's jersey ask me if he should take his belt off now or later.
Oh God, that's one of the worst lines I've ever heard. Let's get better than that. Let's get more creative. Let's be a little more, a little camaraderie. It's the belt to ass thing. Let's leave that to the players. You know what I'm saying? I don't like that.
And good for them, man. I mean, like we said, Jayden Daniels was fitting balls. He was whatever your Chris Collinsworth you want to say, throwing a golf ball through a garden hose. He was making plays. They were confident. I was so just generally impressed by the ability to run no huddle and look really competent and then make the right throw or fit a ball into the right place. Not a lot of guys able to go do that in this rookie scenario. Caleb Williams has 4 touchdowns today. That's fantastic. That is as hard of a game as you could have asked Jayden Daniels to play. The Commanders do come up short, but man, go ahead and enjoy Arlington, Virginia, or Washington, D.C., or enjoy playing the Giants and the Steelers or whoever they have coming up. But man, oh man, I was really impressed by them.
There you go, Panthers, Bears in our next 2 games. That Bears game is going to be fun.
Well, I'm excited for that Bears game. Spenny, we called that out. Yeah, we called that out before the season. That's a very exciting one.
It is. And Mr. Caleb Williams, the D.C. local guy coming back from abroad, his fish and chips in hand. Let's see. That's an exciting game now, right? And I don't know. I think that's a great litmus test for them of we were concentrated. We had defined game plans. It worked pretty well. You had a really large probable talent disparity on both sides of the football, and we're able to still make plays. So that's like my Terry McLaurin grinder game of the year. If you want to do The John Gruden.
Are you going to be doing a TikTok where you're just in a dark room by yourself, just like
I'm feeling
Terry,
nice.
you're just going to read Terry McLaurin's stats off like Terry McLaurin, man.
Oh, I'm feeling
Catches
nice.
89 yards, touchdown, I'm feeling nice. Wow,
Yeah.
wow.
All that stuff was super fun, but it just, Brian, you said it felt casual, and it truly did. It felt different from the Ghosts of Ravens Pass and the Raiders earlier this year and some of the games we've seen. The Commanders go score in the fourth quarter, and they just were able to keep pounding.
It felt like I'll say it right now. I feel like they like exercised a ghost last week against the Bengals. Like it just felt like they got in a shootout of all shootouts. Like that was like the Battle of Jericho Hill, and they just fucking survived it. And like, this is a good team. I think this is not quite, a team that's in its prime. I think they're an ascending one. But like I said, I just never had that pit in my stomach. I was like, you know what? They've been here many times. They've been here throughout this season. They were here against Dak Prescott. They were here against Joe Burrow. They can handle this at home, and they did.
The Commanders end up running for 52 yards on 18 carries. Brian Robinson maybe makes that a little bit more frisky, but you do get Jayden Daniels to throw a career-high 35 passes. You are able to keep plays in front of you. There wasn't that dagger play, and like you just said, Jake, it's not like they're the most egregiously talented receiver core in the world, but kept it in front of you, made plays, kept it casual. Derrick Henry goes and gets you first down after first. I mean, I'll look at the stats. What did he rush for? 7 first downs in this game. At the end of the game, you're able to go ice it. It just felt calm, cool, collected. And we're getting a lot of comments here about Ben Cleveland, the Ben Cleveland game. From the stadium, I had no idea who blocked.
John Harbaugh giving him the game ball. That feels like, yeah, he did. That's like the conference at Yalta. I mean, that's like, talk about the relations being kind of smoothed over. That's the Berlin Wall coming down.
That's the Crips and the Bloods with the bandana.
Yeah, hold them up. Yeah.
And just the grand irony of it, like, all right, we're not going to play you. We're going to stick you in there. He has as large of a wingspan as you'll ever see a guard prospect have, and able to go make that play. And that's what everybody wants to hate John Harbaugh. That's fine. He figured something out to go make a play on special teams, right? You go get that field goal wiped off the board, and that was big. The Commanders had the ball at the end of the half and got the ball back after half, and you kept it pretty calm, cool, collected there.
Upper conference or upper concourse televisions, absolute disgrace. Let's figure that out. All right, we got a stadium that's very beautiful. It's amazing. We've got all this money coming in. We've got the new X-Wing, whatever the hell we're doing. Let's get those televisions and that sound system a little bit better up there, because I totally missed that and it killed me. I needed to see our guy Big Country getting that block, and I missed it. I had to, get through it on Twitter. I had to have words sent to me. Let's just say that. And
the replays in stadium did not necessarily show any clear. You kind of saw that the last angle was Cleveland kind of like, okay, who of the group had the reaction of like, oh, I got a piece of that? It was Cleveland. And so that was my like, oh, was that Big Country? And then sure enough, Twitter was aflame. Big Country.
They were a Twitter. They were a flame. They were a fire for Big Country. Good for him. Yeah, he needed that.
I'm looking at the 2 game recaps the last couple weeks. So since halftime of last week, here are the drives. You guys ready? 4 plays, 74 yards, touchdown. 10 plays, 92 yards, touchdown. 11 plays, 70 yards, touchdown. 8 plays, 34 yards, game-tying field goal. 7 plays, 27 yards, stupid fumble by Lamar, and then the field goal to finish the game. This week, INT in the red zone.
Off someone's hands.
Yup. 10 plays, 43 yards, field goal. 3 plays, negative 10 yards, punt, because they fumbled the snap on 3rd down. 9 plays, 93 yards, touchdown. 10 plays, 78 yards, touchdown. 8 plays, 57 yards, field goal. 8 plays, 94 yards, touchdown. 9 plays, 57 yards, field goal. 7 plays, 38 yards, kneel downs. There is not a true clean, we stuffed you on 3 plays and forced you to punt in that entire group. There is 2 or 3 unforced errors. There are, okay, field goals. I give credit where credit's due. I guess you held us to a field goal after we shoved it down your throats for 40 or 50 yards. There are kneel downs, and then there's game-winning field goals. Like,
Uncle Todd.
it's unreal.
The ability to, like you just said, Brian, not go 3 and out. That's why they lost to the Raiders, right? They immediately went 3 and out in their own territory. They couldn't just move the ball, let up the big sack. So moving the football, giving your defense a chance to breathe, all of this
defeating on the other side to just know that before it's even happened, that is the likely outcome. And it will start to cause teams to play us differently than they should, if that makes sense.
They had to, right? The Commanders are running cover 0. That's not in their wheelhouse. That's not something they have typically done. That's not something Dan Quinn, as a defensive coordinator, has done. They're trying to push and press the issue because you are a juggernaut in many ways. And the balance, 11 out of 11 targets to Zay Flowers, or excuse me, it was more than that. It was 15 out of 15 targets caught by those receivers. That's just killer. You want the Ravens to live there. They chose to, and still able to make those plays. The balls were pneumatic. They were put in the right spot. First down after first down. The Ravens finished with 28 first downs as opposed to the Commanders' 18. And just moving the ball, taking the pressure off, giving a little extra Gatorade squeeze to the defense, right? That's huge. Huge.
No, it is. I think it really, and it speaks to, again, good adaptability, where you look back at that Raiders game, and I feel like that was kind of, Brian, I know you're a big learn the tape, not burn the tape kind of guy. I feel like they probably learned a lot from that one, where it just felt like Max Crosby just wrecking his way through an offensive line that felt overmatched at that point. In that Cowboys game, they just kind of leaned all over them, and they said, we're going to, go to Derrick Henry. And then in the Bengals game, it was like, you know what, we need a little quick game. We're going to go to the quick game. We're going to eliminate the mistakes of this offensive line. Now it feels like there's a little bit more balance, whereas, these defenses are more keyed on Henry. That frees up the pass protection. That frees up the receivers a little bit. It just feels like the game flow is a lot more, it's a little more neutral. It's a little bit more balanced, and it's just easier to make stuff happen than it was early in the year when they were kind of figuring things out, which, Spenny, we talked about. It was going to take a little while for this offensive line to gel. I feel like we're seeing the product of that, and it couldn't be going much better than I thought we could have. It could have, I should say.
And I love at the end of the game there, the entire Ravens team having Lamar Jackson's back. He might have tried to bait a little extra 15-yard penalty, something like that, but it was, do not touch my quarterback. We are willing to die over this. They feel like a more cohesive unit than they did at the beginning of the year. We've heard Harbaugh talk about, we want to be a versatile team with a lot of personnel packages. It is a grand orchestration of what they're trying to do on both sides of the ball. It's very complicated. Has it gotten maybe too complicated? Sure. But getting that in helps you later. You're complex now so that you can feel comfortable doing so later. And Lamar tries to bait maybe a little extra 15-yard penalty. The entire Ravens team goes and has his back. Just have to feel good about that one. That was a nice little note to end it on.
Good job by the refs to keep it in the pants on both sides there, too. They didn't throw it on Lamar. They didn't throw it on the fight. Just let that play out naturally and let the game be over. I didn't want to see anything on that.
No, certainly not. And Lamar trying to flop for a little penalty there, possibly. Investors, possibly you, referees.
Possibly you. Yeah.
Possibly you. So that was all fine, good, dandy. But, man, I just – general takeaway overall, thinking about this offense was, as we've said several times, calm, collected, churning. Brian, you just listed 20 examples in a row of them moving the football, getting first downs, continuing to push, and give their defense a little bit of breathing room, even when last week it was, hey, can you guys just make a play or two? They did. This week it was, hey, we'll bear the burden a little bit. So, good football team, man. The Baltimore Ravens are a very good football team.
Who would have thought? Not me.
Brian, what else are you scouring over here? I see those wheels turning.
I'm trying to find where back in 2019 when I did a bunch of stat crunching, where do I find points per drive? Because my instincts are just thinking through our 6 games that the clip that the Ravens are tracking on is right there with some of those great Chiefs teams early in the Mahomes era. The Saints had a year where they were through the roof on that. 2019 Ravens were like top 5. So be curious to see where they're at right now on that clip.
You were big on that 19 team as one of the best offenses of all time. And I know Spenny has been big on this whole era, but this team in particular being the best rushing team of all time.
Yeah.
The fact that I was sitting in that stadium and you could not have waterboarded Derrick Henry's stat line out of me. I had no idea that guy went for 132 today. It's just so humdrum. Like the fact that he just chunked his way to that, like I would not have thought of that at all. It's incredible what they're doing with him.
Just those little short pitches. The end of the game, there's little short pitches. Let him get to the outside, right?
We were, I think, towards the end of the third quarter, and our total yards were in the low 400s. And I'm looking at like the breakdown between rushing and passing and all that stuff, and I see like 125 so far for rushing, and I think to myself, man, we're having a down game on the rushing side. Like we're still 90 yards away from our average. We got some work to do here, boys. And we went to work.
Outrushed their opponent by 120 yards again. Again, the Commanders averaging 180 yards on the ground. We've talked about Brian Robinson, but Jayden Daniels scrambled twice, I think, for first downs. It didn't really kill you necessarily. They do convert on a key fourth down, things like that, but just beating the will out of your opponent with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson and being able to fit the run against the Commanders team that did want to run the ball still and did try to, but holding them to, 2.9 yards a carry, I believe. Just nutso. It's a good formula, right? And we hear football coaches talk about that stuff all the time. Can we stop the run? Can we run the football a little bit? It just takes the wind out of your sails. And those are things that the analytics princes and princesses always maybe don't love, but it felt like today was such a key. And then able to go get the bucket late. Derrick Henry, 27-yard run at the end of the game. Commanders calling their timeouts, running out of timeouts. You're able to go get it. In this game, the Ravens did not allow defensively a play of 30-plus yards. They allowed passing Noah Brown to go 28, 25 on a screen to Eckler, 24 on a screen to Eckler. Might have been not a screen, might have been a little rail route. The Ravens were able to generate a couple more explosive plays. So keep the ball in front of you, run the football. Don't let your opponent run the football. Have Lamar Jackson, who is so deep into being multiple, having answers. Man, I mean, I don't know. Game of the week felt a little. It was dramatic in ways. I don't know. It felt cool.
You know what this is missing right now? This is missing a certain Chicago resident, a new Chicago resident who could give us all the breakdown on Jim Nantz and Tony Romo, because I'm excited to hear the thoughts on that. I watched some of the highlights, but did not get a full breadth of that, and I've seen some comments that were pretty negative, so it's tough.
I know Romo was out at Caves, I think on Friday, as he tends to be. So,
of course, yeah. I'm sure he tore that place apart. Yeah, I'm sure he absolutely went low out there. Shout out to the Fox.
Yeah. But what are our little nitpicks? Like, we had a couple pieces to maybe say, hey, areas of improvement. I'll volunteer first. I think late in the first half there, Lamar snapping the ball with 30 seconds left. The clock management down the stretch there. No reason whatsoever after basically burning through the Commanders' timeouts by imposing your will on them, just giving them right back. They should have never had the opportunity to kick the field goal that Ben Cleveland blocked, but at the same time, we got free McNuggets. So,
yeah, that's big.
I thought that was a huge one for sure. It made no sense. There was no benefit. You had plenty of time. You still had timeouts as well. And, man, I mean, second half, it felt like there wasn't that big issue, right? The Commanders do convert on fourth down. They do convert on third down, but it didn't feel like the game ended up having to be in John Harbaugh's hand, and I feel like because of that, it was calm, and that's what you hope for, and that's why you don't have – there wasn't any weird, sticky situation, but, Brian, you're absolutely spot on. There's no reason not to milk the clock there. No benefit. You had your timeouts. Yeah. You could have ran it down to a second. The Ravens did that at the end of the game. At the end of the game, they ran it down to 1 second and called timeout. That's allowed in the first half too.
Yeah, the I said earlier that this team's going to have a lot of margin of error against other teams, that there's going to be worser days where that margin of error shrinks, and we can't afford to just give away margin of error on like silly things that seem to be repeated mistakes. And it's not any given one specific thing. It just seems to be like the little logical things that should go into game management. And it's just such a recurring theme in recent years. It's hard not to point towards the absence of Jerry Rosberg. So that's going to be the new why do the Orioles have two hitting coaches? But like this one seems to have some weight.
It's the new what's his face? The bozo strength and conditioning guy. What's his name?
Sanders.
Saunders. Yeah, Steve Saunders.
Scott,
Yeah, that's the new Steve Saunders. Well, Scott Elliott's the new guy, but Steve Saunders. This is going to be the new Steve Saunders situation. Need a guy to come in and settle the waters down, get us into the doldrums a little bit, get us out of the breakers, swim up past the breakers, watch the world die.
And that's what you have. You should be able to get into the doldrums with Derrick Henry. You should be able to get into that with the way Lamar Jackson's playing. And my, oh my, sneakily, this Monday night game upcoming against the Bucs, who are a good football team in many rights, is funky and exciting. And the Ravens have had some fun moments down yonder, but I think the doldrums are coming now, right? Jayden Daniels, an exciting player who had a hell of a game. Baker Mayfield could very well do the same thing. Then after that, you get Deshaun Watson, Bo Nix. You see the Bengals again, Steelers, Chargers, the Eagles playing a tight game against the Browns today, Giants, Steelers, Texans finally, who have had some struggles in their own rights and some injuries, but feels like the doldrums are coming in hot and you are peaking in an efficient way, knowing that you have an offense that can help your defense out and are going to have a lot of time to figure things out against some inexperienced quarterbacks.
Yeah, defensively, it's like we got our guy Baltimore football history here in the comments. Has some belly aches about the defense, and I get it. Like, it would have been nice for our Darius Washington to just grab that interception, right? That gives you really bad field position when Tressway like just booms a punt and puts you in a bad spot. Like, get your hands on the football, just be in a better spot. Spenny, again, we talked about getting Daniels to a spot where he can't necessarily just make that wide open throw. There were a lot of those today. There was Eckler sneaking out of the backfield. It just didn't feel totally clean on defense today, once again, which I just kind of feel like that's where we're at with this defense right now. Like I said, I hope they get Mollett back sooner rather than later. But at a certain point, it's like you can't really have full confidence in this defense right now. That would be my one nitpick. But overall, like, you brought Dean Pease in and you bent, but you didn't necessarily break when things were critical. So that was good at least.
Especially on that opening Commanders possession after the interception, they get the ball in a great spot. They get the ball down starting at the Baltimore 49, 5-yard gain, 4-yard gain. They do throw a screen to Eckler for 24 yards. They stuff for 0, 3 yards. And then you get the big sack, right? You get the big sack, keeping them in the pocket, keeping Jayden Daniels in the pocket, letting Travis Jones go to work, getting a stop in the red zone. Jake, that's what you talked about in the preview. And not letting the Commanders go steal a touchdown after stealing an interception. The interception, hate Mark Andrews, all you want, sure. It bounced up into the Commanders' lap. It was fortuitous. It was poor by the Ravens, but
same thing is literally the same thing as the Raiders bait an interception. It's just kind of one of those things. Like,
wasn't like Lamar put the ball in danger. It could have been a better pass, yes. Should have been caught, yes. But getting that stop, containing, hitting the quarterback, all of those things. You mentioned bend but don't break. That was the definition of it. You needed it quickly. And, man, if that was a touchdown scoring drive for the Commanders, if you were not able to contain Jayden Daniels and let him get out to the right and run and go full steam and make a play, make a throw, make a run, whatever it was, that can make the panic meter start to rise. The stadium pulse.
Different bowl game, stadium pulse up for Jake Louque. My vasoconstriction would have been way up. My Whoop band, if I wore one, would have told me walk away from this right now, and I can't.
Your hypothetical Whoop band was just pulsating there. So,
yeah,
getting off the football a couple times there. After that one, the Ravens, I believe, forced a 3-and-out in the first quarter. The Ravens go 3-and-out themselves. Commanders get the football back. They convert 1 first down, and then you end up getting off the football field. So, I do think this defense has yet to play 4 quarters aside from that Bills game. It felt like the Bills, maybe you just beat the snot out of them on prime time. So another game of, can we do this? Can we do that? Can we play better downfield? Can Brandon Stevens make a couple more plays? The Terry McLaurin couple catches he had and the throws that Jayden Daniels made. What do you want? What do you want the guy to do? He's coming across the face, all of those things. The second touchdown was awesome. And I think big plays. And then, like we said, you have the offense to milk the clock a little bit. Terry McLaurin scores a touchdown in the second quarter, get the ball back. Ravens have the ball in their own 22 with 4 minutes and 16 seconds left. They drive all the way down the football field. It took 10 plays, and you get a Mark Andrews touchdown just to right the ship, get into the doldrums.
All right, so new challenge. We've all got to say something substantive, or our guy Dave One to Cycle is shutting this shit down. And we're going to go around the horn. Spenny, say something substantive.
The Commanders came out. They played bare fronts. They played tight fronts. They took away between the B gaps. The Ravens struggled with that a little bit. We see the Ravens adapt. They go into empty. They start working the ball to the receivers. The second straight game where the team has dared you. Can you push the ball to Rashad Bateman and Zay Flowers? And the Commanders did not have an athlete on the football field that could compare to Zay Flowers. So there you go. Dave 1-2 cycle this.
Boop, 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 boop. Ryan, something substantive.
I'm just going to say ditto, something substantive.
Yeah, something. Yeah, hey, listen, you said it. Yeah, overall, I don't know, man. It just, as far as substantive is concerned, I mean, it just feels like this feels like where the Ravens were, 5 years ago at a certain point. But when you say 5 years ago, you're talking about 2019, and that team was just blowing teams out of the water. But it did feel like this is a Washington team that can really hang with anyone. I'm happy for that fan base. I'm happy for that team. I think Jayden Daniels is a great young quarterback, and there's not a whole lot to really hang your head on this one. I think they're going to be just fine. And
they're
the Ravens
win the division.
Yeah, and well that they should. I mean, this Giants team, good Lord. I mean, I'm going to get off this. I'm going to go watch that game and see if they can hold out against the Bengals, but not totally sure. But yeah, I don't know. This was like I said, Spenny, like in the preview, like this is a good team. This wouldn't have been the worst loss in the world, but I mean, they hung in there against a good team. They got another good win, and you're sitting at 4-2. It's hard to feel very bad about this team when I was feeling very bad about them 4 weeks ago.
As a Ravens fan wearing a Ravens jersey, I lied when I said I didn't want the Ravens to win this game very much, and it would have been fine.
Well, you're a closeted commies fan, so
we're a house divided. Fran would like to share a thought here.
Please give us your take. Give us your take, Queen.
She's got one thought. She's wearing her Thomas Edison "It's Lit" shirt. She has a thought to share.
My only thought is that I'm very glad that the Commanders lost the ability to play defense in the second half and actually allowed Rashad Bateman to get some completed passes. There we go.
You're glad about
Rashad Bateman.
Okay, well that's good.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what it took. He needed the charity.
That was substantive.
And look at our guy. Look at our guy, Dave One to Cycle, a man of his word. How about that? The incredible maturity LJ is displaying. Thank you, Dave.
Maturity is a great word to use. I think that's the biggest key to all of this. Against the Bengals, trailing with the Commanders, a fluky start, and navigating all seas calmly, consistently. Brian, you rattled off. Brian's substantiative comment was, hey, the Ravens have basically moved the ball nonstop in high leverage drives over and over and over again for 2 weeks. And that has been the difference. The defense was not the difference. I wouldn't say Derrick Henry necessarily was the difference. I would say that Lamar Jackson was the difference. That's MVP football. That's why they're chanting his name at the end of games, calming things down, making line checks, distributing the football, getting into runs, and presenting the threat of the run. So I'll say it for the 400th time in the last week. The Ravens have the greatest rushing attack in NFL history, and they don't even need to run the ball in order to make you feel the pain. That is why the Bengals, that is why the Commanders couldn't contain them. The Ravens could have scored. If the Commanders scored again, the Ravens would have scored again. They would have scored again. Lamar wasn't putting the ball in harm's way. There was pressure. Tyler Linderbaum, I will say, got his ass whipped. We didn't even talk about the bad snap, the low snap that the Ravens luckily were able to recover. That easily could have gone the other way. Easily. The Ravens haven't presented dynamic special teams plays, which everybody wants to yell at John Harbaugh for being a special teams coach. put a running back there.
You're
Hardy
telling me
is
all about
right
these dynamic kickoffs. It's not looking too
Ooh.
dynamic to me so far. I'll say that.
Why are we booting it through the end zone with JT every time?
They don't want to. They don't want JT to get hurt because he's out. He's out there. He's in the mix. They don't want him to have to tackle a guy. So just kick it through the end zone. But it's okay though because next year it's going to be the touchback's going to be at the 35, and then the year after that we're going to move it to the 40, and then it's going to be at the 45, and then the 50. We'll just keep moving it up, and then the dynamic kickoff's not even going to be a thing. We're just going to have the team score a touchdown. That's just going to be what it is, right? Dynamic kickoffs. Give me a break.
The kickoff is super dynamic.
It's
Jayden Daniels.
it's a little too dynamic for me. I need some more just static kickoffs.
We mentioned the Ardarius Washington dropped interception, which ultimately determined field position more so than getting off the field. Jayden Daniels throws 35 passes for 269 yards, and none of them went for 30-plus yards. They made the Commanders go the long, hard way, and you play to your offense. That's what this game felt like. The Commanders had to really work for it time and time again. They did a couple of times, and you were able to go get buckets when you needed them.
Thank you, Dave.
Dave. Yeah.
Yes, that's what we're talking about. That's what we
Tyler
need.
Constantine here says Keaton Mitchell on kickoff. Yes. Let's get a little back.
I'm
Or
excited
Derrick
for that.
Henry. Shout out to Brian's
Yeah.
idea.
Derrick Henry. Let's get that.
He
dude
really
downhill.
probably would be fantastic. He truly would be.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Okay.
Did we hear anything? Did we hear anything post game? Did we hear any rumblings, anything of the sort?
Nothing crazy. It was interesting contrasting Roquan Smith's comments going into the game, which is just Rowe being Rowe, right? Like, they haven't seen a defense like us, to what he said after the game, where that's what happens with this guy. Like, he'll say that kind of shit, but like, he doesn't say it totally off kilter. And then like, he'll come back and like, if credit is due, he'll give it. He said they're in good hands with Jayden Daniels. Like he gave a lot of credit to them. Good to hear from Zay Flowers as well. He had some good stuff to say about his big game, but nothing like super crazy. It sounds like everyone got out of there with a clean bill of health. So nice.
Yeah. This is a very cool play there in the fourth where Daniels rolled out and it was Roquan, the only guy on that side of the field, and it was dead pursuit. And the snap had to have been from the left hash, so there was a fuck ton of space, and it was like a staring contest as they were running towards the pylon. And Roquan, somewhat surprisingly, he's not the fleetest of foot, had the angle on him and closed him out for little gain. But it was just one of those moments where it's like this has, like, Daniels has the biggest, baddest dude on the block coming at him full steam. Like, what's he gonna do? And I don't know. It was just kind of a cool moment.
Nothing spectacular ended up happening.
John Harbaugh also pulled away from the podium. Jim Harbaugh was pulled into the medical tent in the Chargers game.
Yeah,
he had like he was okay. And after the game, Jim Harbaugh like mentioned that he has an arrhythmia. And of course, he made some football guy quote about how it was just an atrial flutter. I was like, okay, like, so you had a cardiac event, and like we're just gonna like make light of it.
He's
that's the most Jim Harbaugh thing of all time. Yeah,
which is an awesome quote. I mean, the best quote indirectly about this game or John Harbaugh, whatever, was actually by Jim.
Yeah. It's like, okay, like,
it's
shit,
an awesome
man.
quote.
2-0 against arrhythmias. All right.
Undefeated. Arrhythmias cannot take out the Harbaughs.
Jesse Minter had the interim head coach responsibilities there. That's pretty cool for him. He's pretty
That
much
guy,
like McDonald Jr.
I was gonna say that guy is gonna be a head coach very soon.
Yeah.
So
certainly, and suddenly the Harbaugh coaching tree that has been criticized for not existing is spreading wide and quick.
I mean, tough look for our golden boy out there in Seattle the last couple of weeks, huh?
Don't get me started. He's had half his defensive front out.
I mean, that hat, he was wearing the hat. He was doing the classic Mike McDonald, just grimacing. He wore the run the ball hat, and they tried.
The big thing that I've picked up on that Seahawks fans love is that if the media asks him a question that he likes, he pauses for like 7+ seconds before he answers. He'll be like, well, the thing about Kyle Shanahan, he really is getting into it with the media, which I think does
he do the thing McVay does where he repeats the reporter's first name back to them? Like, hey, Jim, great question. Like, that's the really like annoying, like successful person thing to like, hey, Brian, great question there. Yeah.
Sean McVay would be such a good sales VP.
He would. I mean, that guy was born to be on Zoom calls, just, pitching products. Like, That's what he needs to be doing. Maybe he'll do that after he retires in 2 years.
Get him into the demo space, baby.
Yeah.
But Ravens, cool win. Cool win. Didn't have to have it rolling, right? 4 in a row. Quietly, silently, 4 in a row. No one's bringing that up after that 0-2 start. After losing to Gardner Minshew for the second time in a calendar year, 4-0, rolling. Now they go play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa on Monday night. The Browns, the Broncos, the Bengals, the Steelers, the Chargers after that. So not exactly murderer's row. Could they lose a couple games there? Of course, that's the reason why we always talk about Al Pacino makes that speech. You claw for that inch. You fight for that inch. But, hey, gauntlet. I'm going to say the gauntlet's over, and the Ravens end up 4-2.
Didn't they play Tampa in Tampa last time? Why is this in Tampa again?
Because they want to hear the cannons fire. And
Was that the outlier NFC game, or was that before the 17 game schedule?
I believe they played the NFC South that year because they played the Saints as well, also on prime time that year. They played the Panthers at home, I believe, and whichever team I'm forgetting out of the NFC South, the Falcons.
I guess it is our outlier game because we're playing the NFC East.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the outlier game then. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
I would have thought they'd stack us against like the Niners just because is it top seed versus top seed would have been the thought process, but maybe it.
Listen, the NFL just keeps me on my toes, right? They just get not on my toes, on my heels. They just find ways to inject new things here, there. Let's put a new thing here and there and make Jake just keep up with this and the dynamic kickoff and the 17 games and Germany and Brazil. We just gotta keep me in a blender. That's what they're trying to do.
Something that I've learned today through talking to a lot of Commanders fans is that if you're not in the DMV area, you do not get to see their games on television and have to have Sunday ticket. They have apparently like the smallest. I looked a little bit of it. Apparently they have like the smallest TV coverage of any team.
My buddy lives in Hanover, PA. He came to the game with me today. His wife's a Commanders fan and she's up there and they didn't have the game. They got blocked out by the Eagles.
They get Steelers up there. They get Eagles. They get Ravens a little bit.
Hanover's like a half hour from Owings Mills. It's like it's not that far.
It's right over the border. Yeah, that's right there.
Yeah.
I also am curious about.
Shout out to our guy Uncle Dave, just killing it with the tips.
Most fake 4-2 team in NFL history. I would contest that the 10-0 Steelers might be the more fake.
That was one of the most fraudulent. Chase Claypool, get the fuck out of here. That was one of the worst teams that was ever 10-0. Awful. Losing, never heard of her. Yeah, I think you had after that, my friend.
Oh my God. The Ravens will get swept somehow, some way. Those will be the last 2 games the Ravens lose this season.
No, they totally will. I picked them to sweep the Steelers this year because I was just like, let's get off the schneid. Let's get this thing done. They'll find a way. They'll find a way to lose to Justin Fields and then Mr. Unlimited, in the latter fixture there.
Tailgoat, apparently. Shout out to Jimmy's Famous Seafood with one Jim Kennedy. Mr. James Kennedy was awesome today. I was not there able to attend, but sounded like it was a lot of fun. Shout out to Jimmy's. Thank you for everything they do for us.
How do we feel about Osemele as the legend of the game? What
came out like a man possessed.
He was fired up. I was excited. Yeah.
Clutchy Osemele beating the shield. Looked like he was ready to go block, man. That was like Yonda stays. You get it. You're not going to pay 2 guards. He goes to the Raiders. He was so good immediately after. He has some injuries, but
not too happy. Jeff was talking on Twitter a little bit, and he kind of brought up some memories about it. He was not too thrilled with the Ravens after he left. I think Jeff said he might have had an issue with Castillo or Harbaugh or whatever, but it seems like all that is kind of dead and buried. He was, to your guys' point, he was fired up. He looked great. Love the hair. Looks like he's thriving in retirement there. Good for him.
He looked outstanding. He was so good on his rookie contract. So good. Just the fallout of that Super Bowl was nuts to think about. The amount of players they lost, coaches they lost. Crazy.
Okay.
Final question here. Preakness 07. What are your thoughts on the offensive line starting to really gel? I don't know, man. We're going to go back and take a look at the tape. I thought there were some clean pockets. There was some chaos. The Commanders brought some chaos, but that snap, and I recall one really, really terrible, I believe it was Deron Payne just quickly swimming Tyler Linderbaum. Looked like he had a little bit of a tough game, but I think one of the big stories personnel-wise, Ravens have kept it quiet, but Voorhees healthy. They keep McCary in there. They have not lost since McCary has started playing left guard. Feels a little bit more manageable. Felt like Falele had some issues in pass pro, but also got some buckets in the run game. So we'll go break all that stuff down. But Lamar, man, he's chilling back there, making plays, chilling. The big quarterback sweep at the end of the game, too. That big was like a 27-yard run. Just whatever you want to do, the Ravens can do. It's nuts. Whatever kind of offense you want to run, defensively, some things to work on, but whatever. If you want to blitz, if you want to play coverage, you want to play zone, you want to play man, you want to do this, blah, 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 blah. Versatile, man. Versatile.
Indeed. Brian, any final thoughts?
I had fun today. Let's keep having fun.
Love that. Let's get some real October weather in there, by the way.
There was a lot of lingering by the DC crowd around here post game, I'll say.
I went to Jen's
only
place.
like an hour ago was packed with Commanders fans. Like, get out of here, man.
I think Spenny was chilling with our mutual friend, Mr. Hodges there, Brian.
I was.
I was with him at the
Jen's
tailgate.
place right across the street. I went in there. There was 15 Commanders fans in line with booze at 10 a.m.
What's Jen's place? Is that where Hammerjacks was supposed to be?
Jen's. Not quite. Not quite.
Just a nice little local liquor store that Brian and I frequent. Not while he's in day 42 of being hard, but
right. Yeah. How hard are you right now, Brian?
13 pounds hard.
41 days hard.
Wow. Congratulations. You might want to call a doctor about that. I think 4 hours is the legal limit.
We're just changing the game out here.
You look good. You look handsome, Brian. You look good.
You look great.
Thank you.
Best shape of your
Thank you.
life.
I'm working hard at it. Nope. I'm not Terrell Suggs every training camp, but I'm trying to get
Smyth.
there.
Yeah. Okay. Is that all we got?
I think that's all we got, baby.
I'm excited for that Steelers game. Let me tell you what. Day 76.
I think we might need to do a little Exit 52 tailgate for that game.
There's talks of a Friendsgiving that I'll be doing potentially that day, but maybe not. My thought is like, all right, I'm doing how many of these sober incident analysis for like 10 weeks, and then I'm just going to show up so fucking hammered for that one and just see what the audience of somebody who started week one and thinks I'm usually one thing on these things versus usual. I don't know.
I think I'm flying. So I'm flying into Los Angeles the next day, like super early in the morning. So that's going to be a tough one for me to have to make that happen.
Hollywood Jakey, baby.
I really am. I mean, this is turning into my second home at this point. Good thing I got that Dodgers hat.
There we go.
Dave, what's with all the beards? I mean, shit, man. It's just that time of year. You got to.
Question.
It's a fantastic,
an awesome question.
Baltimore is a city of beards, tattoos, meat, and cheese.
Yeah, and I have one of those things.
You got a lot of meat.
No meat.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, I do have that in some sense or another.
Get us out of here, Jake.
All right. Yeah. All right. Thank you, boys, for joining me as always. A nice enlightening incident analysis, kind of a fun one, like I said. Thank you all for listening in. I hope you guys had fun. Join in the comments section, the 1,300 or so that are with us right now. We appreciate you very much. If you like what you see, do us a big old favor. Subscribe to us on YouTube, comment on the video after the fact. Subscribe to us on your podcast platform of choice. If that is how you're choosing to listen, spread, word of mouth, tell a friend. That's the best way to spread a podcast, in my opinion. If you want to follow us on social media, you can find us on X at Exit 52 Podcast. I am at Jake Louque. That's LOUQUE. Brian at Barstool Banks. Spenny at Ravens 4 Dummies. That is the number 4 in the middle there. Taylor at Taylor Smyth 10. Eric.
One last thought. Oh, sorry, you almost tied that out.
Eric at EDI 22. Go ahead.
Got to give kudos to Spenny for just dominating those hiccups. Just bullied them.
That was, honest to God, I thought that was going to be a storyline through the whole episode, and God, I was so prepared to really enjoy this one, and no, he absolutely just obliterated me on that.
You guys just made me smile. I'm just gonna get some smile lines. I've been full Smaladores this whole time. My eyes have basically been closed. I'm smiling so much.
He did. He had the first drive pick. The hand, the ball bounced off Mark Andrews' hands, and he just rebounded after that. He just made
Mark
it work.
Jackson, Lamar Andrews' hands.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and look at you. What a true pro, calling out the other mistake there. Good for you. Thank you all for hanging with us here on this Sunday night. We will talk to you again very, very soon. And until then, have yourself a good old week.
See ya.
Arrivederci.